Hey everyone, welcome to Tribeless. I'm Kevin. Now, this isn't just a new podcast, it's actually a new way of podcasting, and more importantly, it's a new way of talking about all the important subjects that matter to you, such as healthcare, education, politics, policing, and immigration, among others. When I say this is a new way of podcasting, what I mean by that is you will not be hearing me say the same standard BS answers to all the important questions that matter to you. Why? Because I have no alliance to any party or platform. I do not consider myself a Democrat, and I'm definitely not a conservative. So, am I a libertarian? No. Progressive? Nope. Then what am I? Well, to put it simply, I am all of the above. Let me explain. I have been wrestling with my political identity for decades. I was raised a Democrat, but as I got older, I began to see the world, well, a little differently. Socially speaking, I have always been liberal, but at some point I began to understand that even though I supported making sure help was available for those who needed it, that we had to have a way to pay for these programs. In other words, the vehicle of socialism only works when the engine of capitalism is there to support it. That said, I have felt pressure from outside and within over the years to join either the Democratic or Republican Party. Obviously, I never felt comfortable with either of these choices, so during the last number of years, I began researching other options. This had first led me to the Libertarian Party. What drew me to the Libertarian Party was simple. They were focused on individual rights and liberties, two things near and dear to my heart. So I was intrigued, and I decided to dive a little deeper. I discovered they believed in ending the war on drugs as well as legalizing them. Now, these were views I could get behind, so, well, I kept digging. They wanted to reform not only the police, but the prison system, as well as release all nonviolent criminals. They wanted to simplify the immigration process, not to mention they believed in fighting for the legalization of sex work. And, last but not least, let's not forget their support for ending the endless wars overseas and bringing our troops home. Again, these were all things I had been fighting for years. Needless to say, it seemed as though I had finally found a home. But then I scratched below the surface. During my time investigating, I developed several friendships with people within the party, both locally and nationally. Long story short, I quickly recognized another principle that many libertarians possessed: their unhealthy focus on property rights. Now, I know what you're thinking. What's the big deal with people being concerned about their property rights? Nothing, actually. But like I said, many of these people were hypersensitive about it. I had numerous conversations with people who believed that their property was worth more than anything else, including human life. Again, I understand this is a personal preference, but people I would talk to on this topic would state it was not only their right, but also their duty to defend their property, even to the death. For example, if someone walked across their lawn, they believed they had the right to shoot them. Or if a person rubbed up against their car as they walked by in a parking lot, shoot them. Or let's just say some punk had the audacity to steal their kid's bike. You could, well, I think you get the point. Again, I don't want to lump all libertarians into this camp because many don't take property rights to this end. But honestly, too many did for my liking. And this, along with the fact that most libertarians agree that it should be more or less be every man for himself in society, well, that was enough for me to decide I couldn't go all in for the libertarian movement. So, next up came the progressives. Now, I know what you're thinking. How could I go from one extreme to the other? Well, because in many ways, they're not really all that different. Like libertarians, progressives support individual rights and liberties. They also want to end the war on drugs and legalize them, close private prisons, reform the police, and reform immigration. They support ending needless wars. And, well, as they put it, sex work is work. Not to mention, they've supported additional things that I liked, such as universal health care, UBIs, and raising taxes on the ultra-wealthy, just to name a few things. So, where did the progressive movement lose me? Well, I quickly discovered after talking to some lifelong progressives that their ultimate aim would undoubtedly bankrupt our country. In fact, I did not see any way it could be avoided due to the endless spending they desired. And honestly, most of them admitted to me as much, unapologetically, mind you. Not to mention, I am no fan of identity politics. Don't get me wrong, I believe the majority of people who support this ideology are well-meaning, but I believe their efforts are being misdirected. As Reverend King once said, hate cannot drive out hate. I believe it would benefit us all if we kept Dr. King's words in mind. So, It's clear that I don't fit into the Democratic Party and I do not fit into the Republican Party. I don't fit into the Libertarian Party and I do not fit into the progressive movement. It's taken me the better part of 4 decades to remind myself the same childhood lesson we all learned at the tender age of 3. A square peg does not fit into a round hole, no matter how hard you try. And more importantly, I learned that politics isn't, at least for myself, a subject where I can easily fit into a one-size-fits-all party. I finally accepted the fact I knew all along. I have certain thoughts that align with the Democrats, but then other ideals that match up better with Republicans. And then I have additional ideas that better fit into the progressive movement or the libertarian movement. I've even had a thought or two that do not fit into any party. Now, I could just write it off and say, well, I have enough eggs that go into this basket, so I'll just agree to be one of them. But if I'm honest with myself, I just can't do that anymore. It's not fair to them, and it's certainly not fair to me. I am at the point in my life where I can openly admit to myself that, politically speaking, I have no home. I have no tribe. I am tribeless. And if I had to guess, I'm not the only one. So, that is what this podcast is about. We, like many other podcasts, will be talking about the same topics that are in the headlines, the same subjects that are being shared in text between friends, as well as the same posts that show up in our Facebook feeds. But what sets this podcast apart from others is simple. I am not going to be arguing for any side or party or ideology, because the only responsibility I have is to myself, to speak the truth and to follow wherever that truth leads. Join us, won't you?